All right, ladies, continuing on in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, Two Wives, page 115. Frequently, you have felt obliged to tell your husband's employer and his friends that he was sick, when as a matter of fact, he was tight. Avoid answering these inquiries as much as you can. Whenever possible, let your husband explain. Your desire to protect him should not cause you to lie to people when they have a right to know where he is and what he is doing. Discuss this with him, and when he is sober and in good spirits, ask him what you should do if he places you in such a position again. But be careful not to be resentful about the last time he did so. There is another paralyzing fear. You may be afraid your husband will lose his position. You are thinking of the disgrace and hard times which will befall you and the children. This experience may come to you, or you may have already had it several times. Should it happen again, regard it in a different light. Maybe it will prove a blessing. It may convince your husband he wants to stop drinking forever. And now you know that he can stop if he will. Time after time, this apparent calamity has been a boon to us, for it opened up a path which led to the discovery of God. We have elsewhere remarked how much better life is when lived on a spiritual plane. If God can solve the age-old riddle of alcoholism, he can solve your problems too. We wives found that, like everybody else, we were afflicted with pride, self-pity, vanity, and all the things which go to make up the self-centered person. And we were not above selfishness or dishonesty. As our husbands began to apply spiritual principles in their lives, we began to see the desirability of doing so too. At first, some of us did not believe we needed this help. We thought, on the whole, that we were pretty good women, capable of being nicer if our husbands stopped drinking. But it was a silly idea that we were too good to need God. Now we try to put spiritual principles to work in every department of our lives. When we do that, we find it solves our problems too. The ensuing lack of fear, worry, and hurt feelings is a wonderful thing. We urge you to try our program, for nothing will be so helpful to your husband as the radically changed attitude toward him which God will show you how to have. Go along with your husband if you possibly can. So first in that reading was talking about your husband's employer. I have been the doting wife who has called and lied to my husband's employer, and I'm sure that was humiliating, but I didn't realize it at the time. Like, they knew my husband was a drunk, yet I would call him for him anyways. Oh, his allergies are bad. He's on his pain meds. He's sleeping. He's not coming to work today. Like, what a fool I was. But we did that because we don't want to lose his position, because his paycheck is what's paying our bills. So yes, our desire to protect him should not cause you to lie to people when they have a right to know where he is and what he's doing. That was a good lesson to learn. Wish I learned it sooner. We are on page 116 for those joining. And then, of course, there's that paralyzing fear that your husband will lose his position, or the disgrace and hard times that will befall you and the children. I went from working corporate to not being allowed to go to work for jealousy reasons, to us being broke and having to go pick up a job at the local grocery store, which actually turned out a blessing because I ended up working my way up to working in the corporate accounting department of that grocery store. And that was when I left. So, sometimes losing his position can be a good thing. And then we get on to, we need to adopt the spirituality as well. That can be applied to opposite when we are the sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, living with our spiritual principles. We can follow that example to our not sober partner or our non-alcoholic partners. If we're walking in God's light and we're doing God's will and we're being loving and tolerant to all, that can carry forth and pass it on to the people in our lives, right? I've had an employer who adopted our principles and is now 2 years sober. Not because she was alcoholic, but because she saw it didn't serve her and that there was a different way. We can have that ripple effect by walking in the sunlight of the Spirit. Any hands up? Anybody want to put their hand up? Anybody want to talk about this page? Marianne, I see you reaching. There you go.
Hi, friends. I am an alcoholic member of Gold Mile Group in Toronto, and my name's Marianne. Good to see everybody. Great to be here. Grateful to be sober. I do have that one paragraph about spirituality and what we can do. The person who took me through this book said, page 25, there is a solution for the non-alky too. The alcoholic becomes attractive as they apply spiritual principles. It just speaks to me as attraction rather than promotion, because I can't beat anybody else. Alcoholic, I can just live it. So I'm grateful to be here, and thanks.
Thank you so much. And you know me, I always say what comes to my mind when I hear that attraction, not promotion. Just remember that's to outside of AA. We attract people from outside AA. Within AA, we can promote all we want. So I can promote stuff to other members if I see them, a little like this, or within AA, I can promote, say, if there's a talk happening, or if there is why is the word missing me today? Like a roundup or a convention. We can promote within AA. We just don't promote outside. Our public relations policy is attraction. So the public is attracted. Within our fellowship, promote away within each other. It's just publicly we can't. There you go. I found you, Jeanette. Finally. Is it working? Whoops.
Let me check. No, it's just showing iPhone for some reason.
Okay, I'll change your name for you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Jean.
Good. Hi,
Okay.
everyone, Jeanette Alcoholic. And I just wanted to share something. When I came into the program, my son was only 9 years old. And so I didn't say anything in the beginning about that, because anybody knows little 9-year-old boys don't have much discretion. But I have a very nosy neighbor. And she kept asking, where's your mother going? What is she doing? Why is she gone for an hour and a half? Blah, blah, blah. And he said, I don't know. But all I know is that when she comes back, she's a lot happier. And that was me going to meetings. So I just thought I wanted to share that little tidbit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else on this one? Marty, go ahead. I see you waving at me.
Okay, am I talking?
Yes, you're talking.
Okay, so I'm sorry, because probably everybody else knows this, but is this how Al-Anon started from To the Wives?
Well, To the Wives wasn't written by Lois. It was written by Bill. And then Lois started Al-Anon probably, 16 years later? 20 years later. Because she started Al-Anon in about the 50s.
Because a lot of this kind of sounds like it's a precursor.
Yes.
But, okay.
But
thank you.
Yeah, it is Bill speaking here on behalf of the wives, which I think is a little condescending in parts. Yeah, but I mean, Al-Anon was created right when Bill got sober, because Lois automatically started working with the other women. It just wasn't formally created until about the 50s.
Thank you.
You're welcome. When they weren't allowed to smoke and they must wear skirts. Anyways, I wouldn't have gotten along very well in the 30s and 40s. Okay, let's keep going. If you and your husband find a solution for the pressing problem of drink, you are, of course, going to be very happy. But all problems will not be solved at once. Seed has started to sprout in a new soil, but growth has only begun. In spite of your newfound happiness, there will be ups and downs. Many of the old problems will still be with you. This is as it should be. The faith and sincerity of both you and your husband will be put to the test. These workouts should be regarded as part of your education, for thus you will be learning to live. You will make mistakes, but if you are in earnest, they will not drag you down. Instead, you will capitalize on them. A better way of life will emerge when they are overcome. Some of the snags you will encounter are irritation, hurt feelings, and resentments. Your husband will sometimes be unreasonable and you will want to criticize. Starting from a speck on the domestic horizon, great thunderclouds of dispute may gather. These family dissensions are very dangerous, especially to your husband. Often you must carry the burden of avoiding them or keeping them under control. Never forget that resentment is a deadly hazard to an alcoholic. We do not mean that you have to agree with your husband whenever there is an honest difference of opinion. Just be careful not to disagree in a resentful or critical spirit. Thanks, Bill. I just get a kick out of how he's telling us not to be so resentful when our husbands are being a little unreasonable. And, you'll want to criticize, but you shouldn't. And, when you do say something, basically try not to tick off your husband. Great advice. I mean, I'd like it more if it was written from a woman's point of view, but this is what it is. But that also works when we're working with other alcoholics, right? Like, we have to remember that we can take these things and use them transferably. Not all of us have husbands, not all of us have partners, not all of us have wives, whatever the case may be. But we can use these when working with other alcoholics because it's the same type of principles, right? We're putting ourselves in a position to be supportive and helpful. So we don't want to be encountering those irritations, hurt feelings, resentments, and we don't want to have these arguments and thunderclouds of dispute, so to say, because we have to remember not everyone is well here. This is a program where we're working at wellness. We're working at getting better because we're sick people, and not everyone has gotten well yet. And we have to remember that sometimes, because sometimes people forget that, we are all members of Alcoholics Anonymous. Some of us are recovered and some of us are not quite there yet. And it doesn't matter if you've got 2 days or 20 days or 20 years. Everybody can be in different positions. So it's good to have that compassionate frame of mind. Let's start with Anne Marie and then go to Marianne. Whoops.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm okay. This was not the basis for Al-Anon, but I do get little glimmers of Stepford Wives in this writing, and I think that he would have very much enjoyed having had that kind of female to control, to enable him to him. I've always disliked this chapter immensely. And now that I know that it was actually written by a man, it tells me why it's also read by a man on the CDs, and it's pissing me off even more than it ever did. I just thought it was very condescendingly written from the very first day, but now I understand why. Anyway, that's it. I just had to get that off my chest. Thank you.
Yeah, I love the big book, but there's a few things in it that I'm like sex inventory one too, with the amends part about sex inventory. That page gets me too a little bit, but that's okay. Della's got her hand up. I'll get you after Marianne. Della, I see you, so don't worry. I didn't forget. Hang on, Marianne's gonna go first, and then we'll.
Okay, good.
Okay, yeah.
So I find myself in this chapter a lot because I deal with a lot of non-alkies who are spiritually sick.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, because it is sort of like, I almost kind of I get mixed up with this chapter and end up being a doormat, which I don't have to be either. And that's not the purpose of it. But my sponsor always says, you know, when I go to her with something, that remember, you have a program, they do not. And I was talking to my grand sponsor this week, and she was saying, remember too that they don't have to change because they're going to die if they don't. You have to change because King Alcohol is waiting to kill you.
Yeah.
And just those few sort of pauses, and if I can remember that, it'll just calm me down a little bit from reacting. But I have to be careful. I'm not a doormat either. And so it's really good to bounce this off of like one sponsor or somebody who's got some time in the program who lived these steps, because it does give you some clarity too. Because I get confused fast.
Me too. Well, yeah, and like I think of this chapter as like I was the alcoholic wife married to an alcoholic. I couldn't imagine this chapter for a normie wife married to an alcoholic. She could very well become a doormat. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Like I had that fire of an alcoholic clashing with an alcoholic. So the chapter was a little bit easier for me. Thank you. Della.
Della alcoholic. Good morning, ladies. Am I like totally off here when I think it should be to the spouses? Like I'm reading it in, you know, my fiance's point of view. Mm-hmm. That if he's critical and if he's making comments, I'm gonna get a resentment. So it's like, I don't know, I'm flipping it to his point of view rather than a wife's point of view. I think they should change it. That's just my opinion.
They're never going to change it, but absolutely. Got to remember it was written in the 1930s. So back then, primarily of the 100, there was only a woman, right? 3 women, I think there was. So it's written in the male tense. But same as like everything else in the book, we're female alcoholics reading a male tensed book. So there's lots of things we have to switch, and it's one of those things we just have to be happy with. The 2020 women's version. Oh, it would be a such different book, I tell ya.
A Woman's Way Through the 12 Steps.
Yeah, that one's a little bit softer of a read. That was my first journey through. Christine? Did you get it? There you go.
I got it. Hi, everybody. My name is Christine, and I'm an alcoholic. You know, there's this part of me that's feisty and kind of wants to rebel. But, you know, I can't afford, for me, I'm speaking just for me, I can't afford to rebel. I can't afford it. You know, I mean, when I got into the program, I was not even included being a gay woman. We were gay, forget it. The 3rd edition, they didn't have a gay story. So, I mean, I was not even on the map. And, but I think what's helpful for me is trying to identify and not compare. And when it doesn't apply, well, I just don't bother with it. I just, you know, because I don't want to be right. I want to be happy, joyous, and free. And I guess I'm in a good way today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You must be happy. I think it's the first grapevine to ever be primarily based to LGBTQ, this August 2020 edition. It's actually titled LGBTQ, and it's really a big thing. It's awesome that they're being so inclusive. Kelowna.
Yes, good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
My name's Kelowna Alcoholic. Good to be seen after that hurricane just cruised by us last night. But, you know, this, what I was thinking is that, you know, these wives, I really feel for them back then. I mean, they were already doormats, I believe. And I think when reading this, they were probably, or maybe a few of them were like, yes, okay, yes, this is something we should do. We shouldn't have resentments and, you know, this. And like today, I mean, before when I read this in the past, I always tuned out, because I wasn't even taking it in the context for me. But this last few years, just a couple years or so, I have been looking at it differently. And now in this big book study, I'm really looking at it in a deep, deep way. And I'm grateful, not resentful, that they will not change it. I think the first 164 pages are sacred, and they should stay the way they are. And that as we grow, we can learn how to use them.
Mhm.
And as sponsors now, for me, I can learn how to explain to my sponsee how this will pertain to her or to me. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it also, like, I always like to say, what can I take out of it in order to be helpful to others? There's always a lesson somewhere. And plus, it gives us a really good chuckle in our ladies line by line when we read it. Why not? We're not a glum lot. All right, page 180. Oh, no, shoot, I have tons of hands up. What am I doing? It's Monday. Leslie, sorry, ladies. I'm just out of it.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here, Leslie Alcoholic. I was told long ago, take what you need, leave the rest, as people have been sharing, that immensely helped me with spirituality, not religious program. And growing over the years, it helps me with what I also believe is outdated. But I do feel the same way. The first 164 pages are sacred, and I've never felt that way about anything. I should be able to go in and, fix it, but not this time. And then being grateful that I wasn't a woman back then, and I have been able to support myself financially and be comfortable. So I'm thankful to my higher power for the time that I have been alive on this earth, and ultimately to have other women to sort it out. And when I get to the laughing stage, I know I'm doing good. That's acceptance. That's life on life's terms. And I've struggled with being resentful toward men for so long, but I have to look at my part, and women that I can tell, and myself, always got to keep it on myself. I'm not always easy to get along with, and that's where the minorities keep coming in. And I have my methods of trying to control, not quite as overt probably as men, but keep learning and keep growing. I am just so grateful for the big book, and I'm so grateful for AA for learning how to be grateful no matter what, and take it as it is, not how I think it should be. And I've learned, if I agree with everything, there's no area to learn. There's no space. There's no humility. And I keep coming back for learning and knowing that my problem's in my head. And thank you again, and good to see everybody.
Thanks
That's all
so
I have.
much. Terry S.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having this meeting. I usually go to the one at 11 o'clock at night, which I adore, but lately I have been so tired that I haven't been going to it. So I've been wanting to come to this since my first time here with the ladies. And so thank you. I love all of you guys, and you've just been so helpful. So I wanted to share what I was going to say was what a lot of people have said so far. I'm Terry. I'm an alcoholic. Today is 77 days for me. So very happy to be here. And I love that as women, we can go through the book together, because I do think that as women, we have a certain perspective that like a mixed group wouldn't have, right? So first, I wanted to say that, like, if we look at our history in this country, in this world as women, you know, a lot of literature reflects the way things used to be. And we are so lucky as women that we have made so many strides. I mean, we still have so far to go. But I think, like, if you look at when this book was written as compared to, like, other literature in, you know, classic literature, it's reflective of the time. And so I think that applies here too. I mean, look at, like, you read this book and they talk about whoopee parties. Like, who talks about whoopee parties anymore? You know, but it's in the big book, right? So I remember, like, we had a whole thing about that one night at 164, and it was hilarious. Like, it was so funny, and we can find humor in that today. I'm not saying, like, some of our issues that we've, like, had to endure as women, yeah, not so funny, right? But we can decide our attitude today. And maybe this chapter is going to be super helpful to somebody, right? Maybe somebody's going to have a spiritual awakening because of this chapter. It probably won't be me, but it could be somebody. And, you know, so be it. Like, then it should stay. Like, then it should be something where somebody can have their own experience with it. And then lastly, just what I wanted to say was that because I've been going to so many meetings on Zoom, since finding this program, some people have been talking about this chapter already, and apparently there was an issue where Lois was actually very resentful that she didn't write this chapter, and apparently she, like, carried this resentment to, like, the day she died, which I think is very interesting. I don't know if it's true. I did hear somebody say that, but I think she was pissed off that she didn't get to write this chapter, or that she wasn't asked to. So that's something to think about as well, that maybe she wanted to write it and she just didn't get the opportunity for one reason or another. But I'm glad that we get to go over it together and talk about how we feel about it, because I think that's important, and that's so much. And being open-minded and talking about this stuff is so much about what this program is about for me. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's worth mentioning, just because I do that when it comes in my mind, the program of action is found in chapters 5, 6, and then 7, working with others. The rest of this is just the stories, the additional information. So, like, to the wives, to the employers, and the family afterwards is additional information for the wives, the employers, and the families. We're reading them as it enhances our understanding of alcoholism and the effects of alcoholism in the home, and it helps us in working with others. That is why we do it. But, you know, if we go to the doctor's opinion and chapters 1, 2, and 3, that's letting us know about our disease. It's getting us 1, 2, 3, our first 3 steps. But the program of action is 4 through 12. That's where the work's done. That's where you have your spiritual experience. And through working with others, we grow spiritually along spiritual lines. So this is just, it's additional information so that we're armed with more facts about ourselves and about the alcoholism and its effects on our wives. And for us, a lot of us have been wives of alcoholics, but a lot of us are the alcoholic whose a spouse or partner had to deal with. But I love these chapters just to get knowledge to work with others. There's always great tidbits in here that you can apply when you're working with others. Leslie P. This chapter is just for Leslie
Unmute
P.
now. Okay. Okay. First of all, I'm married to a man that was born in the 40s. And I was born in the 60s. Actually, I was born in 1960. I'm going to be 60 in September. Woohoo. But I still have that attitude. Like, I have the attitude like the man doesn't belong in my kitchen. I do all the work. Cooking, cleaning, making the beds, laundry, taking care of the kids. That is, to me, that is my job. It's the job that I've taken on. And it's unfortunate because I was also a nurse. I was the primary breadwinner. So I could do that in my 20s, 30s, and
then later 30s, I got into my accident. So I was kind of, it wasn't like I checked out. I worked even that much harder because I became obsessive compulsive and I forgot about, did I clean that or didn't I clean that? So I cleaned everything twice, 3 times, sometimes in a day. So I kind of like, I'm the attitude that you have to earn your rights to go into my kitchen. And, you know, he's mechanic, farmer, not clean hands. No, you don't deserve to come into my kitchen. So that's to my own detriment. I trained him that way. So now I just got to live with that because you can't untrain that. So I envy those women, like my daughter, who allows her husband to go into the kitchen and cook, and I eat the food, but he comes into my kitchen and I almost have a panic attack. So I kind of relate to these women. When this part here, we wives found that, like everybody else, we were afflicted with pride, self-pity, vanity, and all the things which go to make up the self-centered person, as we were not above selfishness or dishonesty. In that part, I'm thinking about when I wasn't an alcoholic, which was several years ago, when my husband had had cancer, chemo, started drinking heavy brandy, and trying to have people over when he was half shit-faced, going for a nap and saying, oh, you know, he's a little weak, you know, the chemo, you know, and making up excuses. So I really understand about that part of it. Mm-hmm. Like you're constantly making up excuses. Oh, you know, he can't breathe, right? Because like, hey, he's only got one lung now, right? So he can't breathe, or there's just a whole myriad of excuses that I would use for his behavior. And to, again, my own detriment, because I became an enabler. So then I'm thinking, okay, I don't want him to drink too much because I don't want that to bother him. Like, I don't want him to be, you know, affected by that. So I'll drink part of it. So there, you know, so now I'm shifting here. I'm starting to drink his fair share, right? I'm trying to get my fair share so that he's not going to become an alcoholic. Crazy thinking. So then as time goes by, I become the alcoholic. I'm just joining right in with him. So what am I trying to say about all of this? I sort of understand. I understand the 30s lady. You know, I understand how this book came to be. How the wives must have felt. I think that Lois probably was so resentful. She probably died of stomach ulcers. I mean, I couldn't see why she wouldn't have ulcers living with that man. But from that perspective, and I think she did go out to work for a while too. Yeah. But she was holding shit together like for so long, and then just going through. It was almost like it was like mechanical, like, you know, you just like robotic doing it. And doing it without thinking. And I've lived that life. I've been living that life for the last 10 years, for that part of the alcoholic part of it, and then the enabler and the codependent and all of this other crap. Now I'm getting on track. And I realized with 2 things I want to say is, one, about the praying for your husbands or your loved ones, and that came in loud and clear to me over the last couple of meetings, Zoom meetings that I saw. Pray for that person, blessing, healing, mental health, whatever, and things are turning around. I forgot what the other one was, but then again, yeah, I'll keep it at that. So that was it. Yeah. Boy, oh boy. Windbag. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Leslie. All right, Christine, we'll get you. We're just going to read some more first, and then we'll get you. This is a good chat. This is a good paragraph here. It's good giggles. You and your husband will find that you can dispose of serious problems easier than you can the trivial ones. Next time you and he have a heated discussion, no matter what the subject, it should be the privilege to either of you smile and say, "This is getting serious. I'm sorry I got disturbed. Let's talk about it later." If your husband is trying to live on a spiritual basis, he will also be doing everything in his power to avoid disagreement or contention. Your husband knows he owes you more than sobriety. He wants to make good. Yet you must not expect too much. His ways of thinking and doing are the habits of years. Patience, tolerance, understanding, and love are the watchwords. Show him these things in yourself, and they will be reflected back to you from him. I would highlight that, guys. Live and let live is the rule. If you both show a willingness to remedy your own defects, there will be little need to criticize others. We women carry with us a picture of the ideal man, the sort of chap we would like our husbands to be. It is the most natural thing in the world, once his liquor problem is solved, to feel that he will now measure up to that cherished vision. The chances are he will not, for like yourself, he is just beginning his development. Be patient. Another feeling we are very likely to entertain is one of resentment that love and loyalty could not cure our husbands of alcoholism. We do not like the thought that the contents of a book or the work of another alcoholic has accomplished in a few weeks that for which we struggled for years. At such moments, we forget that alcoholism is an illness over which we could not possibly have any power. Your husband will be the first to say it was your devotion and care which brought him to the point where he could have a spiritual experience. Without you, he would have gone to pieces long ago. When resentful thoughts come, try to pause and count your blessings. After all, your family is reunited, alcohol is no longer a problem, and you and your husband are working together towards an undreamed of future. That paragraph kind of makes up for some of it. I kind of like that paragraph because it's kind of Bill saying, you know, you're the only reason I was able to get to this point. Your devotion helped me. It's actually a little sweet in amongst all of the rest. That first part there about this is getting serious. I'm sorry I got disturbed. Let's talk about it later. I know people who actually do that. I don't practice it myself because I haven't had a big disagreement come up, but they'll actually pause and say, let's talk about this later, and they make an appointment, especially if it's to do with finances, and they'll say, let's sit down after we both had a moment to cool, and we'll come back to it. Good trick. I love that line in the second paragraph. Patience, tolerance, understanding, and love are the watchword. Show him these feelings, these things in yourself, and they will be reflected back to you from him. That can just be a good mission statement for life. You know, go through life showing the world patience, tolerance, understanding, and love, and that's what will come back to you. I really like that line. Christine.
Yeah, hi again, Christine Alcoholic. I'm listening to that and I'm feeling like I not so much this part, but the part before, like I feel like, whoa, I mean, I felt like going to Al-Anon. You know, I mean, I didn't have and for a long time. And I always they're all program. So they were a program and I worked mine. And I think about my father. I know that my father is so true. I think that my father would have went way down if my mom would have left him, because my father was an alcoholic. And he never found the roots. I left him a big book once upon a time, and I don't know if he read it or not. But one day he said he was probably some kind of an alcoholic. So I look at my mom and how she struggled, you know, now a wife, and then, you know, I was the first one to recover, the first and the only one to recover in this family, and she went to Al-Anon. You know, when we talk about when we say, you know, it's not not promotion, but anyway, I know what I mean. So yeah, I think that how that you know, when we say I think Lois was probably feeling this way and that way, I don't know really how Lois felt, but if she went, if Al-Anon was based on the 12 step and she worked the steps, I think Lois probably died in peace. I hope so. I certainly know that this program allows me to have some peace of mind, and allows me to let it go. However, in those days, you could not really get divorced. And if you did, you had kids, you didn't have the opportunities you have today if you're a woman. So it's pretty complex, that chapter actually, and for these women. And I'm so glad that I wasn't born in that era. However, I believe in reincarnation, so maybe I was, and I died. I don't know, but I don't know. You know, I think there are some good guidelines there for my relationship today, and I know that we do take a break when things get heated, so that I can do a 10-step. You know, that I can do a 4th. Do a 5th if I need to, you know, pray for readiness for whatever the fear that's behind usually the disagreement is handled, and I get guidance from my higher power as to how to resolve the problem. So, you know, there's a lot of good stuff in there. I just have to keep an open mind and try to identify with what resonates, and today that's what resonates, and then maybe in a month something that didn't resonate will resonate. So, well, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's the fun thing about this book, and the amazing thing about this book is every time you read it, you get something new out of it. You have a different experience and you grow more. But let's get it right from Lois's mouth. There's a book called Lois Remembers. Thank the Lord for Google. He did a good job there making someone that smart. Page 113 and 114 of Lois Remembers. Lois says, "Therefore, I had expected Bill to ask me to write the chapter 2 Wives, and perhaps the following one, The Family Afterward. When I shyly suggested this, he said no. He thought the book, except for the stories, should all be written in the same style. I have never known why he didn't want me to write about the wives, and it hurt me at first, but our lives were so full that I didn't have time to think about it much." So, that's what Lois says about that. Alrighty, anybody else on this page? I really liked what Christine had to say about her parents. And about her dad, because you know, part of the thing for me was when I left my husband, it was because of his alcoholism. And you know, I always, especially after he passed away, had the what ifs. What if I had stayed? What if I had pushed him to go into recovery? What if? But what if I didn't? Like, I could be dead too. You never know. The journey is the journey, and we need to learn what we learn from the journey and go from there and pass on our experiences as a result. So I got past my what ifs, and I'm happy where I'm at. Leslie B.
Yeah, the only thing that I have to add to that is that even with praying for my husband and his recovery and wellness for him, the message that I've been getting is that he might be of that type that never quits drinking. And then I have to figure out for myself, am I going to be comfortable with that? Am I going to be able to live with that? Or am I going to just say, okay, we're splitting the sheets and figure out where to go from there? He's been okay the last couple of days, and he's been helping me harvest the garlic, which is different from 5 days ago when he told me to stay in Kamloops and I'll send you some money. So, I mean, it's just it's like a constant state of flux, you know. And if what I've come to learn, or what I've come to realize, is that expect nothing and you're not going to be disappointed. So that's my attitude, is expect nothing, and then everything is gravy. Everything's going to be a bonus. Whatever God gives me is going to be a bonus. So, thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. 2 things on that. First, expectations lead to resentments each and every time. Never have any expectations about anything, because you'll always wind up with a resentment. And if you don't have any expectations, you'll always be pleasantly surprised at whatever you get. It's like Christmas every day. But I will say about your husband and about how it works, where it says there are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Those who are constitutionally incapable are those who are so far down the scale that they need to be institutionalized. People like to say, oh, I'm one of those constitutionally incapable people. Those are not the norm. They're very rare. And those are usually people who have drank to the point of wet brain. So the only thing that's keeping people from getting sober is that the 3 requirements: open-mindedness, willingness, and honesty. So don't give up hope.
No, I won't do that. But
there rarely is a constitutionally incapable person. They're just people who aren't capable of being honest or willing or open-minded.
I think with that person, he would have to go back to he would have to get some couch time and have to be honest about his feelings. Which goes back to when his father died. You don't have to do any of that. All you need to do, willingness, open-mindedness, and honesty. You can literally get through anything with the steps if you are open-minded, willing, and honest. 100%. The only I'm writing that down.
Those are the 3 requirements: open-mindedness, willingness, and honesty. And you have to have all 3 for this thing to work. Because, I mean, someone can go lay on a couch. They're not open-minded. They're not willing. They're just laying on a couch. And half the time, people aren't honest with their therapist. So let's be honest now. Okay, Karen's cool. Like, yes. All right, we're going to finish this page real quick, ladies, and then I'm going to open it up, okay? Is that okay? All right, because we only have like 1 page left. Still another difficulty is that you may become jealous of the attention he bestows on other people, especially alcoholics. You have been starving for his companionship, yet he spends long hours helping other men and their families. You feel he should now be yours. The fact that he should work with other people to maintain his own sobriety. Sometimes he will be so interested that he becomes really neglectful. Your house is filled with strangers. You may not like some of them. He gets stirred up about their troubles, but not about all of yours. It will do little good if you point that out and urge more attention for yourself. We find it a real mistake to dampen his enthusiasm for alcoholic work. You should join in his efforts as much as you possibly can. We suggest that you direct some of your thoughts to the wives of his new alcoholic friends. They need the counsel and love of a woman who has gone through what you have. It is probably true that you and your husband have been living too much alone, for drinking many times isolates the wife of an alcoholic. Therefore, you probably need fresh interests and a fresh cause to live for as much as your husband. If you cooperate rather than complain, you will find that his excess enthusiasm will tone down. Both of you will awaken to a new sense of responsibility for others. You, as well as your husband, ought to think of what you can put into life instead of how much you can get out. Inevitably, your lives will be fuller for doing so. You will lose the old life to find a much better one. Find one much better. Perhaps your husband will make a fair start on the new basis, but just as things are going beautifully, he dismays you by coming home drunk. If you are satisfied he really wants to get over drinking, you need not be alarmed. Though it is infinitely better that he have no relapse at all, as he has been true with many of our men, it is by no means a bad thing in some cases. Your husband will see at once that he must redouble his spiritual activities if he expects to survive. You need not remind him of his spiritual deficiency. He will know of it. Cheer him up and ask him how you can still be more helpful. The slightest sign of fear or intolerance may lessen your husband's chance of recovery. In a weak moment, he may take your dislike of his high-stepping friends as one of those insanely trivial excuses to drink. We never try to arrange a man's life so as to shield him from temptation. The slightest disposition on your part to guide his appointments or his affairs so he will not be tempted will be noticed. Make him feel absolutely free to come and go as he likes. This is important. If he gets drunk, don't blame yourself. God has either removed your husband's liquor problem or he has not. If not, it had better be found out right away. Then you and your husband can get right down to fundamentals. If repetition is to be prevented, place the problem, along with everything else, in God's hands. We realize that we have been giving you much direction and advice. We may have seemed to lecture. If that is so, we are sorry, for we ourselves don't always care for people who lecture us. But what we have related is based upon experience, sometimes painful. We had to learn that these things the hard way. This is why we were anxious that you understand and that you avoid these unnecessary difficulties. So to you out there who may soon be with us, we say, good luck and God bless you. And it reads, the Fellowship of Al-Anon Family Groups was formed about 13 years after this chapter was written. Though it is entirely separate from Alcoholics Anonymous, it uses the general principles of the AA program as a guide for husbands, wives, relatives, friends, and others close to alcoholics. The foregoing pages, although addressed only to wives, indicate the problems such people may face. Alateen, for teenage children of alcoholics, is a part of Al-Anon. If there is no Al-Anon listing in your local telephone book, you may obtain further information on Al-Anon Alateen by writing to its World Global Service Office, and it leads that address. That last paragraph does kind of lend to itself that it was written by an alcoholic for alcoholic wives, if you reread that last paragraph. But like I said, all of these things can be very helpful in working with others, in understanding those still suffering, 100%, especially those last 2 pages. I will open it up for discussion on the whole chapter. Lori.
Hi, Kim. Thank you, ladies. Hello, alcoholic Lori. I'm coming up on my 1 year on Sunday. Whoop, whoop. If I'm willing, because God is always. So expectations and what ifs. I really like, again, what Kim, I always love what you say, but I love what you said about the what ifs and how, if we get caught up in the what ifs, it's like we forget that, like, God brought us here, right? And, like, sobriety is a gift, and we can't really just be living in, like, what if this or what if that. We have to focus on, like, what we can do today. Or at least that's how I've been kind of, like, through reading through the book and journaling on it. It's just like
that's been revealed to me that I have to focus on, you know, what if I can improve? You know, what if I can be more loving? What if I can be more tolerant? And what if I can, like, what can I do? And the expectations too, that's a big one for me, is like, okay, so it's good not to have too many expectations, but I have to have also some level of the willingness and honesty and the tolerance. I have to have, those are key. Willingness, open-mindedness, and honesty, those are key. And so there are certain things like I can't have too many expectations, but I also have to have like healthy boundaries. And for me, I think part of it is understanding that if I want to have healthy expectations, I have to expect that for myself. And so, I don't know, I just really resonated with that, and how it's good to not have too much high expectations, but also expect whatever I'm like expecting from others, I have to be giving that myself. And the fear and intolerance kind of stuck out on that page for me, because right there, like it says fear and intolerance, that's the complete opposite of love and tolerance. So if I'm living in judgment of others, if I'm living in, you know, any type of fear, whether it's anger or self-righteousness or resentment, and I'm not being tolerant of others, that's like the spiral that just keeps, you know, taking me back to that same spot. And I'm going to have those expectations, and I'm going to have those what ifs. But the moment I give it to God and I surrender my will, and I'm like, Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, I can live with less expectations of others and lead by the example, like they're talking on the pages. So I'm just trying to do that, and, you know, find the balance. I think balance is definitely key. It can't be like all black or all white, you know, and that's where that sweet spot is, and living in that sweet spot. So I'll pass with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, there's no more little blue hands up, so we got through to the wives. Whoop, whoop. I will pause that.